Okay, so I'm Joao and he's Genis. We are both studying a PhD in computational neuroscience, and we started this PhD because we wanted to understand how the brain works. Of course, this is a stupid goal, it's a very difficult goal, so we changed gears to how the brain solves simple tasks. So let's play one game. Let's play one of these tasks. In this task, you have to tell me in which direction are the majority of the dots moving. Please raise your hand if you think the dots are moving to the right. Very good, the dots are moving to the right. If you think the dots are moving to the left, please see a doctor. They're all moving to the right. But this was a very easy stimulus. Let's do a more difficult stimulus. Please pay attention because a new stimulus is coming. So here's the stimulus. Please take your time to integrate the evidence, count the number of dots, reach a decision to which direction are the dots moving, and store this decision in your memory for this delay period, just for a few seconds. And now, please, who of you think the dots were moving to the left? Very good. They were all moving to the right. So this talk is about how your brain uses the information from the stimulus and reaches a decision. And to do that, the brain has to do two things. First, it has to accumulate the evidence and reach a decision. And in neuroscience, this is called decision making. And then he has to store this decision in memory, and this is called working memory. So apart from the stimulus information and the behavior outcome, we also have access to the neuron activity from animals, of course, not humans. So let's start from the beginning. How does a neuron work? So neurons receive inputs and send outputs to other neurons. In this case, we have a group of neurons that sends the output to this big neuron over here. And there are two types of neurons, excitatory and inhibitory neurons. Excitatory neurons have an impact on the integrating neuron that increases the voltage of this neuron, while inhibitory neurons decrease the voltage. If there is enough voltage that crosses the threshold, there will be a spike on this neuron itself, and this will send information to the neurons that receive the input from this neuron. So this is a real neuron. You have several spikes, and each spike event is marked with this line on the bottom. And we model these neurons with this differential equation that describes the dynamics of the voltage of the neuron. It's pretty simple. It looks fancy, but it's simple. So this term of the equation integrates the voltage from other neurons that are connected to this neuron. And this other term is just a leak term, because these neurons are not closed compartments. There's voltage that leaks. So we are able to reproduce more or less the same dynamics in model neurons. But of course, this is pretty boring if just single neurons, so we need to connect this and describe networks. So here is a network of a brain at rest. These are neurons that are recorded simultaneously, and on the bottom you see the time of the spikes. Okay. And so if we connect excitatory neurons and inhibitory neurons in a balanced way, we are able to reproduce more or less the patterns that you see from a real brain. So usually we don't look at the raw spikes. We average out the number of spikes, and we have this measure which is called the firing rate. So yeah, how does the brain solve this task, Genis?
Okay, so here I'm going to try to explain you how a real brain tries to solve this task. This is the stimulus that Joao has shown you before. And here I'm going to show the activity of two different neurons, one which is right selective and another one which is left selective. In this stimulus that is right, the right selective neurons increase its firing rate during the stimulus, while the left selective keeps a low firing rate, a low activity during this right stimulus. After the stimulus, during the delay, the decision is stored in memory thanks to the high firing rate of the right selective neuron. Okay? In the case of a left stimulus, the opposite happened. The left selective neuron increased its firing rate during the stimulus and keep in memory through a high firing rate during the delay. So now the idea is, can we build a model, a network of these neurons that are a differential equation that is able to solve that task in a similar way? So this model was developed by Wang in 2002, and it's composed of two populations of excitatory neurons, one which are selective to the left stimulus and one which is selective to the right stimulus. This means that they receive an input which is proportional to the number of dots that are moving to the right or the number of dots that are moving to the left. And then there is another population of neurons which are inhibitory, that they are not selective. Okay. When there is no stimulus, both populations has a low firing rate. It's and a similar pattern of activity that Joao has shown before. When we introduce the stimulus, then of course, this case is a right stimulus, then the right population receives much more input than the left one. This means that the firing rate of the right population increases, while the left population keeps a low firing rate. This happens because the right selective neurons increase its firing rate and activate the inhibitory population, which shut down the left population. And this is very similar to what we see before in the real neurons. And finally, thanks to the recurrent connections inside the right population, we are able to store in memory the decision during the delay period. And yeah. But this is quite complex because we have one differential equation for each neuron, so we have thousands of equations connected. But if we can use some mathematical tools to reduce this high-dimensional system with a lot of differential equations to only one differential equation, which is basically describes the dynamics of the firing rate of one population minus the other. And this means that if we are in this central, the system, which is this ball, is in this central valley, means that there is no decision. This happens before the stimulus. When the stimulus comes, this central valley disappears, and now there are only two stable states, this right decision or left decisions. In this case, this is a right trial, so the systems end up in the right stable state. But now, when the stimulus disappears, we come back to the previous shape, but now since we are already in this stable valley, we stay here and the memory is stored. But this is only for a binary choice, left, right, but you might want to store in your memory which was the direction. So Comta et al. In 2000 they developed a model which is very similar to this one, but now we have several populations of neurons, and each one is selective to one direction. 0 degrees, this is selective to 0 degrees, for example. So this is activity when there is a stimulus of 0 degrees, and this is the activity, now this is the whole ring, and this is activity when the stimulus is 270 degrees. And finally, this is probably the most shocking video that we've shown, and because this is the simulations, and this is the activity of the neurons of a fly brain. So this is not simulations, these are real neurons from the fly. And finally, in the last 2 seconds, we're going to show you what we do in our lab, which is our supervisors, Jaime and Albert. Yeah, thank you very much.